Okay, relapse in relationships. And a lot of people, what we fail to recognize is many times our relationship is not the catalyst for our relapse. It's the fuel, it's the petrol for our relapse. And this is what it sounds like on the whole for people who end up in chemical dependence, in the chemical dependency context. 9 times out of 10, when we sit down and have a look at their relationships, it's honest to conclude that they go into the relationship because of the feelings they get from her. They go into relationships because of the feelings he gives to me. He makes me feel. Okay? And when he walks in the room, there is a sense of connection, and there's a sense of significance, and there's a sense of security that takes place. And that's what happens when you take amphetamines. And that's what happens on your way to the bottle store. And that's what happens on your way to the drug dealer. And most of us who come out of a chemical dependency context, you think, if you're honest, you'll recognize the fact that we even get a sense of security when we find the ways and means to buy the next drug. On the way to the drug dealer, the withdrawal symptoms start to subside. The physical sweats continue, but the psychological trauma of not having a drink, the psychological trauma of not having a mind and mood altering substance, the psychological and spiritual nightmare of not having this option of taking control of your psyche, your feelings, your emotions, your just about everything, your life. And when we smoke that first bag, as soon as we get that first bottle or on the way to the dealer, we're in control. And we've established that life has significance, life has connection, life has security. And many of us, if we're honest, if we wind back to that first love, that's what she gave me. And I went into a relationship because of the feelings she gave me. And I was in a relationship because of the feelings I got from her. Significance, connection and security are spiritual dynamics that no substance, person, place or thing on the planet can give to you. You cannot take a chemical to try and solve a spiritual dilemma. And this is what happens when we come into the treatment context. And for all you boys and girls at home with husbands and wives who you met in a treatment clinic, you know, I say to the clients here, so what you've got to do when you start having an exclusive relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend in the treatment centre, you must just fast forward 10 years and imagine that conversation with your little girl when your little girl sits on your knee and says, "Daddy, tell me where you met Mommy." Mm-hmm. "Well, we were in a treatment centre, darling. I was in there for crack cocaine. I'd been sent there from the Crown Courts. I'd been using, boozing, cruising and losing for 15 years. And then I was in treatment for 2 weeks, and then your mum walked in as a compulsive cleaning shoplifter. Oh, I fell so in love with her." And then what happens is we get embroiled in this relationship. And I think the word is an acronym, relationship. Really exciting love affair turns into obsessive nightmare. Sobriety hangs in peril. Relationship, really exciting love affair turns into obsessive nightmare. Sanity hangs in peril. And this is why we suggest take it easy on the relationships front. You come into treatment, you come out of the swamp of addiction. You come out of that forest of darkness. You come out of the Lord of the Rings type of environment. And you come into a treatment environment. You've got to now start developing. The one thing that you've got to be really careful of and try to avoid to the best of your ability is the external stimuli that gives me a sense of internal ta-da. We've had people leave the facility in the last 2 weeks, hit the wall, crash like a cheap aircraft, and then arrive back within 3 or 4 days. okay? And right at the hub of the relapse, I say, what went on? The relationship with my mom, the relationship with my dad, the relationship with my dog. And it was all a really nice idea. Now, as the kind of, because I'm holding the steering wheel of the Addictions Treatment Centre, I have to challenge my team and myself. Are we giving our clients security, significance and connection? Are they over-dependent upon us as counsellors? Because a sick counsellor will always keep the counsellee needy, especially if it's a £500 a month invoice. So we've got to look at ourselves, and maybe we need to detach from these guys a little bit more. Maybe we need to protect our recoveries from people who are really, really nervous, really, really anxious, really want what we have at the sacrifice of us being clinically accurate and strong. So if there's a relationship taking place, the first person I need to look at is me, okay? But by virtue of the fact that there was chaos before the people arrived, tells me that they're the ones who are repeating the same mistake. They go home expecting everything else to be different, and they get the same results. And there's your Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous definition of insanity. That we repeat the same mistake and we expect something different to happen. It is not going to happen. It is really not going to happen. When I get into a treatment environment, if I'm really joining the treatment process and the growth process, there is no way at all I can be the same person in 18 months' time. If I am the same person in 18 months' time, it's because I'm not growing. Let me tell you the difference between addiction and recovery. You're either growing or you're going. Simple. You're either growing away from the addiction or you're on your way back there. There's no middle ground. There's no man's land where you can find a pretty young blonde chick or a nice big handsome hunk who's the strongest in the treatment centre with this wonderful romantic background, and there's no middle ground where you two can pitch up and everything be all right. It don't work. And I'm sorry it doesn't work. I'm just a messenger boy. I'm just a messenger boy. And I'm just trying to speak with a little bit of passion. We have a husband and wife team with us this morning in Bethesda, and they're going home together just now, okay? And I'll say it now, I met the guy officially about 15 minutes ago, and this is what I will say. To this guy now, he can watch this, he's sitting about 2 meters away. If something hits me on the side of the head at the moment, you'll know who it came from. If he doesn't change, you're going to end up back in the swamp. In a marriage, I don't change, we grow together. In a marriage, the two become one. In a marriage, for better, in sickness and in health, for better, for worse, you took the vow, you wrote the contracts out, you signed it, and when you signed it, you wanted it, you loved it, and you believed it. Now, when the pawpaw hits the fan, when you get home and it starts to get a little bit rocky, you go back to your vows. And I'm speaking to one person, but there are husbands and wives in the group right now who know exactly what I'm talking about. And there are mums and dads at home, okay, whose daughters and sons have just come out of raging relapse, and there's the blame game. The blame game, the blame game. Listen, this child didn't choose you as a parent. Everybody's played a part in it. Everybody needs to change something. We can't send one person away from a whole context of chaos, expect that one person to change and come back and then change the chaos. It's too much to expect for a young recovering man or woman to pull his family onto the recovery table. And it's really too easy for that young recovering man or woman to get pulled off the recovery table. Okay? What we have to do when this young guy or this young lady goes home is make sure he or she, make sure they stay in the middle of the table, they stay protected. They stay vigilant. They need all-round vision of who they're mixing with. What kind of conversations are they getting involved in? And as soon as they start to fall in love, quote unquote, alarm bells. I get involved in a relationship. I meet a chicken or you meet whatever the situation is. and we're professing to want to move away from the addiction, and it makes absolute sense that we would want to move away from the addiction, but it's an individual program of growth. So in 2 years' time, I can't be the same person. You fall in love with me this afternoon, and in 2 years' time, in 2 weeks' time, you're starting to think, hang on a minute, this is not the... How many husbands and wives in a counselling context, maybe in a family conjoint, she says, where's the guy I married? That is the guy you married. So when it comes to relationships, really, you have to take into a relationship. That relationship, a healthy, loving, developmental relationship, is always the person you're getting involved in a relationship has to be better off because they met you. Your influence upon them has to be beneficial for them. Your influence upon them maybe even comes at some cost to you. Healthy relationships are seasoned and held together by humility and sacrifice. Humility and sacrifice. Not greed and self-seeking and I need. I'm afraid, I hate loneliness, so I'll go out and find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I can't bear the thought of spending the rest of my life alone, so I'll go out and get married. You're using. It's using, and you're making the same mistake. You're doing it again. It's the same pattern. You're looking for something outside of yourself to tell something within yourself you're okay. I drive a Land Rover, okay? And not so very long ago, the turbo started to whine. Literally, the physical turbo. I don't mean any one of the passengers. I mean the turbo in the engine. It started to make a whining noise. I go straight back to the Land Rover dealer. And if you drive a Jaguar or a BMW and it goes wrong, if you drive a Jaguar and it goes wrong, you're not going to take it to Hyundai. If you've got a Samsung television and it starts to go on the blink, you're not going to take it to JVC. So when you start to get involved in relationships where your heart gets broken, where are you going to take it? Who are you going to take it to? Psychiatrist, psychologist, clinical psychologist, occupational therapist, the pharmacy, prescription. When that heart shatters again, and when the hearts around you shatter again, what are you going to do with them? Who are you going to report it to? Step 1 of the 12-step recovery program says we admitted we were powerless over our addiction and our lives become unmanageable. Okay? I think step 1 should be 2 steps, and I think the unmanageable bit should come before the powerlessness bit. Because my life is unmanageable, I use substances, and then I can't stop. Okay? Step 2 says we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 2 says in humility you have to sacrifice your ego. And the question has to reign loud and proud. Would you want to get involved? Or let me just turn it a little bit deeper. Would you want your daughter to get involved with a guy like you? Would you want this? Would you like it if a guy like you came and knocked at the door and said, "Hello, sir. I'd like you to give me your daughter's hand in marriage"? The answer's got to be yes, of course. The answer's got to be, I'll tell you what, sir, if your daughter and I get married, she'll be more of a woman by this time next year. She'll be more of a girlfriend. She'll be more than a fiancée. She'll be more than a daughter. The person she is will develop as we live together. Her character, personality, her development will improve and increase because she met me. That's what I'm bringing into a relationship. Significance, connection, and security. I bring that. Relapse and relationships. 2 sides of the same coin. Really, 2 sides of the same coin. For you guys who are in the treatment context now, maybe Bethesda, the AA guys in Pretoria or Durban, wherever you are, one or two friends there in Holland and Belgium. whatever the context is, whatever your current context is at the moment, if you're alone, it's okay. And it really has to be okay. You have a step program. You know what needs to be done for the step program. Okay, the step program is an internal cleansing process. The cleaner you get, I don't care how painful it is, the cleaner you get, the more attractive you will become. And you're already attractive. Come on. The cleaner you get, the more you've got to strive to get to that place where you can wake up in the morning and say, you know what, this is all right. This is actually okay. And if I'm going to stay single, I will use my singleness, I will use my aloneness as a platform to lead by example. You've got to be okay without a relationship before. As soon as you're okay outside of a relationship, you're ready for a relationship. That's the only symbol, that's the only flag you can really look for. You have to be okay outside of a relationship. And if you're not okay outside of a relationship, don't make somebody else not okay either. Okay, is this making any sense? I'm getting a few thumbs up here. There's one or two guys clocked out. That's, yeah, all right, fair enough. Such is life. To close, just to conclude, if you're already in a relationship, this doesn't mean your relationship has to end. Okay, it really doesn't. If you're already married, you've taken those vows, let me just remind you of something. There's no surrender and there's no turning back. This is not the end of your marriage. If you're in a marriage and you lie awake looking at her in the middle of the night thinking, "Argh," or if you find yourself standing next to him when he's asleep with a great big knife like this, your relationship needs some work. It doesn't mean you have to. It doesn't mean that you have to. It doesn't mean that the marriage is over. It means you've both got to individualize to come back together. And we've each got issues to change and to face up to and to take ownership of. Okay? It doesn't mean your marriage is over. It really doesn't. Skype us, phone us, email us, get in touch with us. If you're in a crisis now in your marriage, that's a platform for a better marriage. It really is, man. Whatever we've got in front of us is an excuse to improve. Poor guy's coughing his heart up there, man. He's trying to cough quietly, bless him. So, relationships and recovery, really, really volatile ground, eh? Really scary territory, okay? And I'll close with this question. Would you be okay to separate from your relationship? Would you be okay? Would you be able to stand alone? If she dies, do you die? If he dies, do you die? If he runs off, do you collapse? If he has an affair, do you come apart at the seams? If she has an affair, are you dead? Is your existence, stability and peace of heart and mind dependent upon a person whose existence is probably dependent upon you, and there's this mishmash? You want to get closer to each other. Separate and create boundaries with each other. Both of you sit down and start making boundaries. This is what we should. This is what we can do. This is what we will do. This is what we must strive for, because the two became one. If you are single and you go into the meetings, you're really on thin ice, man. And I know that struggle. I know that struggle. Honestly, if you're not starting to get to that place where what I'm saying now, you've got to be all right on your own. If you don't believe that, change your sponsor. Change your sponsor. Start getting honest about the games that you're playing, because if you're not growing, it's down to you, mate. It's not down to us. We can't make you grow. So when people do leave and they get home and there's relationship crisis, you need to remember, what do I have to change? What is it about me that can get us through this crisis? What do I have to change now? And it might be that you don't go home. It might be that you do really relocate. Please don't think in terms of forever and always. You don't know how long you've got left to live. It might be that you need a period away from that context to change, so that you then can go back and change that context. My life is changing more lives in my old context now than any amount of influence that old life used to have on me. Recovery is just absolutely unbelievable, but you need God. You need a personal relationship with God. You need to explore this God. You need to challenge this God. You need to say, show me and I will believe. Step 2 says we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And step 3 says we make this decision, to make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. And if I gave you any other message, I'd be ripping you off. Okay, guys. Ciao, ciao.